Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to my regular YouTube live stream, Ask James, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. As there's no Premier League football this weekend, let's get straight into the questions. Rowan S says, good evening James, what did you make of last night's game, and do you think FIFA should follow UEFA's footsteps and ban supporters from attending games in Hungary? You had a very lengthy chat about this, me and Suj, on our Patreon podcast this morning, and I think unfortunately we got to be at zero tolerance now, and I think it needs to come with threat. It's not suspended games behind closed doors. Literally, if you don't sort out your own supporters next time you do it, that's it. So we just go immediately to final warning stage. Right, that's it. If it happens again, you're out of the tournament. And not just out of this one, you tell them you're out the next World Cup qualifiers as well. And hopefully then the football associations at some of these countries will start banning their own people, because it's not all Hungarians. It's one of the things that really annoys me with this. It's not all Hungarians, or it's not all Bulgarians. We kind of group it because we knew there was going to be trouble at the game last night. It's so predictable, unfortunately. And we know the group of people where it's coming from. Just get rid of them. Stop them from coming. Or at least put the threat out there where they know, right, they got to be responsible for their downfall of their own nation's potential prospects. And eventually the FAs will deal with it, because it will hit them in the purse, right? If you say to them, look, you can't qualify, you're out of this tournament, no more games, and you're out the next qualifiers, these football associations need their money, particularly a country like Hungary who spent a lot of money on that new stadium, right? And I think, yeah, we need to, to say FIFA needs to follow UEFA's footsteps, UEFA are no saints in terms of dishing out punishments. I'm almost kind of waiting for the announcement that Hungary have been fined £25,000 for reported racism, but £50,000 for a flare getting thrown. Come on, they need to deal with the problems. They all do. John O'Sullivan said, hi James, keep up the great work. Can you discuss Wolves defenders, especially how nailed they are, please? Okay, goalkeeper's nailed. I think Nelson Semedo's fairly nailed. He missed the first game with a slight issue, so I would say, yeah, he's nailed 4.9, and I think ideally that's where you go if you want a Wolves defender. Marcel's definitely got the shirt over Ryan Aït-Nouri at left wing back at the moment, but there is some thought process from in the Wolves community that with the fixture run easing, Aït-Nouri, who is better offensively, might get a shout, so I would avoid that. In a back three, Connor Cody is definitely nailed, but he might not be in a back four, and we know from pre-season and from his previous history of management that Bruno Lage ideally wants to play a back four. I think Cody's probably safest. I think I would next go to Max Kilman, because I've been very impressed with him actually. I thought he was excellent in the Wolves-Tottenham game, and I think he would be very unlucky to lose the shirt at the moment, but it is a bit more of a risk. Semedo I think is the most nailed, obviously cost the most. I think he's worth paying the extra for. Otherwise, I think it's Cody. It's no frills. It is what it is. And Josh Yames says, afternoon, James. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin is out for game week 4, would you go Ings to Bamford or Jimenez? Also, who's the best 5.0 or less defender until game week 7? Either Semedo or Christensen for me. Well, it's just a doubt in terms of his Christensen nailed. Is that first choice back three as Piliqueta, Silva, Rudiger? I think it would be enough for me to think, oh gosh, I just want to pay the extra for Antonio Rudiger, I think. Would I, in terms of moving from move Calvert-Lewin to one of them? No. If you already own, then yeah, I think you've probably got to come off. There's too much to miss. I think I would look at that probably and go, can I have Jimenez for Watford and Brentford and then reassess afterwards? I think if I was in that position, I'd Calvert-Lewin. That's probably the way I'd go. DarrenMalloy says, would you prefer if Tottenham finished top 4 or won the Vanarama Conference League this season? A difficult one. I think for the future of the football club, it needs to get back into the top 4 as soon as possible. But from a supporter perspective, we need to... You can say whatever you want about that trophy. It'll end the wait, and we need to end that wait fairly soon. And it's the best chance we've got of winning a trophy this season. I think in all seriousness, Darren, I would take top 4. But top 4 is not realistic. Winning that Vanarama Conference League is. Mohammed says, good afternoon, James. Good afternoon, Mohammed. Craig Davis says, hi, James. Best 4.5 million or less defenders on a wild card to go with TAA. Livramento, Brandon Williams. I think they're the two real cheap ones that you kind of want as 4th, 5th subs. I really think Ben White should be considered. There's every chance he may be 4.3 before the game week 4 deadline comes around. I think that's very interesting. We've just spoken about Connor Cody at Wolves. Watford have some short-term very good fixtures. I think Truce de Kong would probably be the way to go, but realistically I think there's better options than that. So I think, yeah, Cody, White and the two real budget players would be the thinking, really. Obviously Leeds. Ayling and Llorente. I think you'd want one Leeds if you haven't got already. So one of Ayling or Llorente. And of course Brighton. Because we shouldn't. Joel Veltman's back fit now as well. So he's another one to put into consideration. But I think if I was on wildcard, I'd definitely be going to Wolves defensive. But I would find the extra money for Semedo. In all honesty, that would be the ideal solution. Or do what I'm possibly doing and going with a goalkeeper. Jose Sarr at 5 million. FTLOL podcast this afternoon, James. Which of these moves do you like the best? Ings and Fernandes to Ronaldo, Jota. Ings and Gilmore to Dennis, Jota. Or Ings and Fernandes to Havertz, Lukaku. The one where you don't have to get rid of Bruno Fernandes this week. I know a lot of people expecting a kind of downturn in his FPL returns, but this is not the week to get rid if you've got, honestly. I've seen a few people say, is it worth taking a -4 to get Fernandes out and Bruno in? Fernandes out and Ronaldo in. In my opinion, no. Don't settle Bruno Fernandes before Newcastle at home, honestly. He's got a hat-trick from open play in his last home fixture. Newcastle are there to be done. Whatever United assets you've got this week, you keep, as far as I'm concerned. The change to that would be, obviously, if you're on wildcard, that's a little bit different. Andres Yamas says, sorry for the second question. I would like to hear you talk about Mark's analysis of Ronaldo on Black Box. I think he showed with stats what we all feel. Juve and Madrid were playing to his strengths. If you haven't seen it, and to be honest, it's probably the first bit of FPL content that I've consumed that wasn't our own in quite some time. But I watched Ronaldo's second half for Portugal against Ireland the other night. And it was the way the game finished did make you think, oh, I need to rethink what I'm doing here. Do I need to force him in? So I knew Black Box were recording that night, so I caught up on it a little bit later in the evening. And the analysis from Az and Mark, obviously particularly Mark, in terms of the detail we went into on Ronaldo's statistics was phenomenal. And I'd recommend anybody go and, to be honest, watch it. You can listen to it. There is an audio version, but I would recommend watching it so you've got the statistics in front of you while the gents are talking. Really, really good. I think what Mark was trying to do was just show the con of Ronaldo too. There's so much pro. Can things go wrong? And just make a case for against. That's all I think he was doing. And it's very difficult to. None of us are doubting that Ronaldo's going to come into the league and score goals, right? I think for me, the decision at the moment probably rests on, I was always going into game week 4 and thinking, I'm going to get hurt this week with no Bruno Fernandes. And now it's just a case of, I'm in the same position and I'm going to get hurt by Ronaldo. But with what's coming afterwards, I don't see me sticking the armband on Ronaldo till game week 14, 15 after this week. You could possibly make a case for game week 6 when they're at home to Aston Villa. But I'd be very comfortable to go with Salah away to Brentford as it stands, personally. So it's just not worth breaking up the team for me. It basically would take me a -8 to get Ronaldo in, just to captain him this week. And I'd be part moving the captaincy off Salah to do that. And I don't think it's worth it, personally. I've got an issue with Emi Martinez I need to fix. I've got a problem with Ricardo Pereira I need to fix. I've got Harvey Barnes probably needs to go. But I'm not even convinced to take a -4 to get rid of Harvey Barnes, actually, because he's got a few more good fixtures, actually, after Manchester City. I know he's underperforming at the moment, but it's not my biggest problem. The problem is, at the moment, I've got a mid-price defender who's unavailable, and I've got a premium price goalkeeper who's definitely unavailable. And there isn't, without kind of really scrapping them and pulling down Harvey Barnes, or coming off Heung-min Son, that's the only way to get to Ronaldo. It's going to cost me a -8. I don't think it's worth it. I mean, for the 2-3 transfer, I can't do it. I can't do it and play 11 players this week, put it that way. So Mark made a great case, and I think that's what Mark was trying to attack an avenue, because he's kind of similar way of thinking to myself from the captaincy perspective. So I can understand why he's looked against, and I don't think he's particularly saying don't get Ronaldo, and neither am I. I mean, I think he's the best captaincy in game week 4. I think he'll do great. I don't think there's much doubt about it. Mark's analysis was Manchester United have got to alter the way they play somewhat for Ronaldo to get his returns. I did an analysis for advanced tier patrons on the goals he scored in Serie A last year, and the conclusion I came to is that he scores all types of goals. So I don't think there's quite such an issue around that, but it is definitely the flat track bully nature to his returns, where the hauls that we would want in FPL come against a weaker opposition. And following that Newcastle game in game week 4, there aren't any for ages. And therefore, you know, if Ronaldo scored 1 goal every week and got 6 points every week, I could live with missing that, to be honest. And that's why I'm not going to go there. But yeah, highly recommend watching Mark's analysis. He does some brilliant bit in terms of where he gets his returns from. Really detailed comparisons with Lukaku, Salah, Kane and Fernandes as well. Brilliant research. Highly recommend watching it. Austin Laley says, who is the best budget midfield option for the next 4 out of Gray, Sarr or Traore? Well, on the fixtures, I'd say it's very close between Sarr and Traore. Personally, I think I'd more likely go to Gray, though, just to get the budget down. Traore's not a consideration for me. I know his statistics are amazing. His statistics always look like they should be amazing. The fella can't finish, unfortunately. Whereas Damari Gray's numbers are nowhere near, but you save a little bit of money in the bank, and he's got 2 goals already. I was very impressed with Ismaila Sarr at Tottenham. He's a very good player. The thing is, I would say with Sarr is, if I get him, I definitely want to get rid, I think, by latest game week 8. With Traore, once you go in, you'll find that very difficult to get away. So I think if you're looking at more short-term, if you're thinking wildcard game week 7, I think probably there's a strong case to say Ismaila Sarr. Longer term, I'd possibly say Gray, even though he's got the hardest fixtures of the 3 as well. It's easier to leave out at that value if you rotate it as well. Martin Boyle says, Sky question, can passing and tackle tiers from the big 4 defences, for example Rudiger, Van Dijk, Diaz and Varane, cover the attacking returns of their forwards with captaincy? Can't do the same for Kane, obviously. Tar, you make a very valid point there, Martin. That's why Harry Kane's so important in the Sky format as well, because there aren't the alternatives. Yes, in that format, in Sky Fantasy, Van Dijk can cover Salah. Varane could cover Ronaldo. Diaz will almost definitely cover any Manchester City attacking player. So yes, there is a case for that. And that's why Harry Kane should never be too far from your thoughts, actually. Yes, they can, Martin. They definitely can. It's consistency. With the defenders, you're probably not going to get the big captaincy hauls, but you probably get a greater line of consistency. FPL Rubber Ducky saying afternoon. Oh, Steve Jones, where do I apply for Planet FPL? I'm going to say BCFC is Bristol City FC correspondent. Oh no, it's Birmingham City. Birmingham City correspondent. When Troy Deeney scores the winner at Wembley in the playoff final. In my DMs, mate. I thought Deeney's departure from Watford was handled very well by all parties. Most of us, especially Aston Villa fans, will know him for a while. He's a big Birmingham City fan. So, yeah, wish him well with that move. Andreas Niku says, afternoon, James. Hope you're well, mate. Yes, I am. Thank you. Hope you are too. Neil Thompson says, double message about Wolves removed. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you, Neil. Dylan Farrell says, hi, James. What did you make of the internationals this week? Few good games in the qualifiers for once. Nice to see a style and substance to Ireland that isn't kick it long and win the second balls. Yeah, there was Ireland carried a bit of a threat at 1-0 up on the counter. I mean, Connolly had one great chance. I know he gets a little bit of a nudge, but he's probably not enough for a pen, to be honest. And there was another one, he had a half-decent effort as well, Connolly. So they had threats on the break, actually. Good to see. Because, we've covered this for you, Dylan, and stuff. Irish football is not in a good place at the moment. So, nice to see him coming close to win a real big match that completely finishes, I think, any hopes of qualifying for that World Cup. But it's about building towards the next Euros now. In terms of the games this week, I'll be very honest. I watched the second half of Portugal-Ireland, and I obviously watched England last night. I've seen some goals. I saw the goals from Sweden's victory over Spain. So Italy draw at home to Bulgaria was a bit of a surprise result. I saw Andorra beat San Marino. Good luck to them. But I've not seen much more of it, Dylan, so not correct for me to comment, in all honesty. Ryan Reed says, if you didn't have Ronaldo, but do have Fernandes and Greenwood, would you consider captaining those or possibly going for Salah, Son, Antonio instead? If I had Bruno Fernandes and didn't have Cristiano Ronaldo, I would captain Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, little doubt about it. And I may even captain Mason Greenwood myself. I think I'll probably go with Mo Salah, away to Leeds. But I wouldn't rule myself out of doing Greenwood. Yeah, if I had Fernandes, didn't have Ronaldo, I'd stick the armband on Fernandes. I wouldn't think twice about it either. Neil Thompson says, for Sky Fantasy, which position would be the best for a cheap enabler? Defence or midfield? Is there any standout options to keep funds top heavy? Well, the thing is, Neil, the problem is when you go with these real budget ones, as we covered in the week on Wednesday's podcast, they're so difficult to get away if they turn out to be absolutely awful. I think a Tebo at Watford might be one who you've seen nothing from yet, who might do okay for tackle tier and stuff. At Watford, I was quite impressed with his performance at Tottenham. Really kind of glues the space in between midfield and defence for them. I looks a decent player, actually. I think he's about 5.7. Ideally, you want it in the midfield, Neil, because to have all the money in attack and defence, which is really where you need it in Sky Fantasy. The problem is, as I said, Neil, getting away from it's so tough. And ideally, I wouldn't recommend going with someone that cheap. When you sit down and think about it, it's like 1.1 million more for Ben Rama, for example. And there's others in and around that price bracket. And it means you just need to make a sacrifice of £1 million somewhere else. That is better than having the really cheap player. Lee Jackson said, afternoon, boss, even. Which three Chelsea players do you think you'll be most likely to own in Game Week 7? Reece James worth the gamble? He might be, but I personally wouldn't want a player who those are their rotation. As good as those 5 Chelsea fixtures are, they're rotation fixtures, aren't they? So I think for me, Lukaku, Mount, Rudiger would be my first thoughts. It's not impossible to end up with Lukaku this week. It's easier for me to manoeuvre than getting Ronaldo and then having to force it again to Lukaku. And the 1 million difference is actually quite important, potentially, in terms of the setup and me making it happen. So I could end up with Lukaku. I don't think I will. The one I'm most likely to get first, I think, is probably Rudiger. If I don't get Rudiger this week, because I can see Rudiger being a straight replacement for Pereira for me. If I don't get Rudiger this week, it's probably a go back in Game Week 7. I'd be quite happy to roll Game Week 6 and take the -4 in Game Week 7 for 3 players. It's very viable. But there's a fixture that can be attacked this week with Aston Villa. No Martinez, no Buendia. It definitely can be attacked. Perles Pen says, hi James, hope you're well. What defence would you go for on Wildcard? Oof. What did I say the other day when we did a Wildcard draft on Tuesday, didn't we? Definitely Livramento and Williams, I think. Excuse me. I think Trent, Rudiger, Shaw. I think that's probably where I'd be at. Strong case to look to manoeuvre that, I think, from Shaw to Ruben Diaz in Game Week 8, potentially. That would possibly be and by then it could be Stones or Laporte instead. That's probably where I'd be thinking. I do think there's a strong case for wildcarding and going 4-4-2 at the moment. And having that as a back four, something like Diaz, Shaw, Trent, Rudiger. It's so strong. And you forget about it. And when you go something that strong that you can forget about, and you know these guys are capable of keeping a clean sheet, you know, they can play each other and it's 0-0, for example, that it allows you to move around the premiums a bit more. The more shit picks and risky picks you take on the wild card, the more you're going to be you're going to find it difficult to jump around these premiums as and when you want to. So I'd want to go very consistent. I think it would either be that I'd go to back 3, or I'd possibly go down 4 big hitters, actually, and go 4-4-2, go Sissoko, go a 4.5 attacker, and go quite cheap in the midfield. So it'd probably be Salah, Lukaku, Antonio, and then 3 in and around kind of Benrahma, Rafinha area. And again, ideally, just kind of leave them, make consistent picks rather than fixture picks, I think. Matthew Ian M. Mo says, hi James, apart from your podcast and the guys you had on during Takeover Week, are there any other FPL podcasts you recommend listening to? This is always a nightmare, Matthew, because there are too many to mention, and I could name 20 and afterwards I'd be gutted that I missed someone. Just know that there are so many. I've already spoke about Black Box earlier. I do strongly recommend listening to theirs from the other night, but I mean, in terms of recommend, there are so many good content creators out there. It almost feels unfair to name one or two now. Simda here says, is it daft to go 3 premiums? Rom, Salah, Bruno, Trent with no Antonio. It's not daft. It's a way you can go, mate. Definitely. And you'll certainly find covering your captaincy easier. And you'll have A and B options every single week, I should imagine, because, you know, for example, you can go Lukaku to Kane in game week 12. It would be easy enough for you to go the 3 you're going with there. I mean, you've already got Bruno. Bruno over Ronaldo is interesting. You can do it. I wouldn't, is what I would say. But Darth, nah, I just think your concession is too much. You're giving away too much in terms of the value of your rest of your squad. We can all look at it and we all go, yes, you know, we all want Lukaku, Kane, Salah, Ronaldo. You know, ideally, we'd get all 4 of them in, wouldn't we? Trent as well, all 5 of them. It's not viable. And the more you have, the more you have to give somewhere else. And the more you sit there and you really do start relying on the likes of Damari Gray and stuff. Lin Tian Bao says, hey mate, huge fan of your pod, thank you. Would you take a -4 for Torres? Or a -8 for Jota if Firmino is out for 2-3 weeks, or even Wildcard? Thanks again. I can't advise you to Wildcard when I've no clue what the rest of your team looks like. My honest answer to that would be neither. I think Torres looks great, and he's probably going to stay through the middle. Would I take a hit for a Manchester City player before they're playing Leicester away? Not really. Don't think so. No. Ross Johnson said, hi James, do you think Ronaldo got booked intentionally last night so he could join United on Tuesday after quarantine? No. The guy's so vain. I think he did it because he just wanted to show off his body, right? I don't think he was thinking about it personally. Doubt it would have come into his thoughts. Because if he was really thinking that, why didn't he do it after the equaliser? He's left it late, hasn't he? So, no, I don't think he was thinking about it. I'm sure in the moment, he probably, after he's done it, he's gone, I'm suspended for Azerbaijan now, aren't I? But probably in the moment, no. He's probably completely forgot. Even at his level, no, I don't think he did it on purpose. If he did, he's a clever bastard, but then why not do it after the equaliser? Philip Sukta says, hi James, I agree that Bruno to Ronaldo from -4 is unreasonable. But assuming he starts and is on pens, isn't Ronaldo a better captain option in game week 4? If so, who is the best sub 8.5 million midfielder to get for Bruno? Yes, I do think Ronaldo is a better choice. Do I think it's worth the -4 to move it around? No. No, I don't. I would just go with Bruno. But that's because the influence for me would be, I'm not convinced that I want any Manchester United assets beyond game week 4. So I'd just be looking at it and going, well, keep what you got and just sell Bruno in game week 5. Move that on into, if you haven't got Mo Salah, you want to move that on to Mo Salah really for game week 5, Crystal Palace at home. If you have, then you can free up the funds, right? And do it another way round. So you can build the funds for 2 weeks before going Lukaku in 7, for example. People are going to do that, the -4 Fernandes to Ronaldo, and it could pay. But are we sitting here and we're saying Fernandes cannot outscore Cristiano Ronaldo? It's not the case, is it? It's one game of football. If it's a long decision and your process is that you know you want to definitely keep Cristiano Ronaldo while he's playing Leicester, Liverpool, Tottenham, Manchester City, and at the same time Lukaku's playing Brentford, Norwich, Newcastle and Burnley, then take the -4 because it's very long-term thinking. But it's exactly that. There's no way I'm having Ronaldo over Lukaku for that period, game week 7 to 11. And I think it's the FOMO of Ronaldo. That's why the people think, oh, I want 2 premium forwards. Yes, you can go that way, but then it's so difficult to manoeuvre when you want Salah, or even if you want to go to Heung-min Son. I think to do it, you've got to come below Son's level in terms of your midfielders. And you really are in a blanket of Torres, Rafinha's, Benrahma's, and they may all do great, don't get me wrong. But don't rule out Mo Salah. It's a very simplistic point, but don't forget this, right? Cristiano Ronaldo signing for Manchester United has zero impact on the ability of Mo Salah at Liverpool. Let's just remember that. Nikolai says, To finish your question, Philip, though, who is the best sub 8.5 million to get for Bruno, if you want to go that way? I think timing-wise, although it is Leicester, it probably does lean into Torres, but you could switch it back up and it will hurt. I think if you can get to Jota, that's the way to go, isn't it, really? Diogo Jota. Nicolas says, do you think going for Aubameyang for a 1 week punt versus Norwich could be a good shout? Then if he blanks, go to CalvertLewin. Well, if Calvert-Lewin's fit, you just go to Calvert-Lewin, don't you? Could Aubameyang do bits against Norwich? Yes, of course he could. Is he worth getting in for a 1 week punt? No, probably not. FPL Finding Glory afternoon, James. Spurs to win any silverware this year or Spurs to finish in top 4? I've already had that question once. Personally, I want silverware, but understand Champions League may mean Kane stays and we attract more players. Yeah, it's unfortunately the long term of the football club has to be in the top 4, mate. Unfortunately, and I think we all hate that that's the way football's gone, but it has to be the priority. Neil Thompson says, you are convincing me that Lukaku is the way to go. Bruno and Ronaldo, no. Here's hoping for a Newcastle clean sheet. Listen, don't let me be the preach and convincing. I've got logic for me. And also you have to remember what I'm saying in terms of it's very difficult actually for me to get to Ronaldo. If I could get to Ronaldo in free transfers with no hits this week, I'd probably do it. And let him sit there till game week 6 and then get Lukaku in game week 7. So you just got to relate it to what's best for you as well, that's all. And if you really believe it, and it's difficult not to believe that Ronaldo will go mental, then get him in by all means. Just, there's a bigger picture sometimes. TJ Powell says, hey James, do you think Graham Jones being less involved with England will have an effect on them? Well, judging by last night, TJ, no. It was a very good second half performance, particularly under the difficult circumstances. But yeah, I think it's good news for Newcastle if you're spending more time with them and training their guys and coaching them properly during international breaks rather than joining England. But his name's going to get mentioned with some bigger jobs, I think, in the near future. I wouldn't be surprised if he's left Newcastle between now and next year because of how impressive he's been. Addy Tor says, hi James, thanks for the great content. What do you think about Premier League players not having COVID injections? I think, my opinion would be I would like everybody to have the COVID injections, but I think everybody's entitled to do what they want, essentially. It's people's lives, people's bodies have got their own beliefs, etc. I wouldn't force someone to do it. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, and it's going to cause some problems down the line, Addy. I understand that's why Ronaldo's got to... Well, I think Ronaldo has had it, but the UK government doesn't necessarily recognise the vaccine that he's had, and therefore he's got quarantined for 5 days or so, which, for long-term Ronaldo holders, you might want to bear that in mind before Manchester United go to Leicester in game week 8, just saying. It's possible we could miss the game because of that, as things stand. That's a long way off. We still haven't got the full picture for game week 4, have we? And that's why I just stop all this. Oh my God, he's going up in price and stuff. Let it go. It's not like there aren't alternative options. Let it go, because you might suddenly realise that you've got 1 or 2 players out in game week 4 that you didn't expect. So please wait. That's one bit of advice I can definitely give. D-Raj says, Firmino. It's always Firmino in Sky, mate. In fantasy football, sorry. Okay, now get your words out. FPL, James. Kevin Mommy says, what is your chip strategy this year? It's quite clear cut, really, as opposed to last year. There were several different options. I think bench boost will probably be for game week 36. Triple captaincy will be whenever Lukaku has a big double. And because of Chelsea's involvement in the Club World Cup, they are likely to have one probably in February. And they'll have a double and probably no one else will. That will happen at some stage. So I think Lukaku for the triple captaincy when the time's right. That will be extremely popular as and when it happens. Free hit probably to cover the FA Cup quarterfinals. First wild card. I think I can manoeuvre through game week 7. So I know a lot of people using it now, and it's understandable. I know a lot will use it for game week 7 for the Chelsea swing. Excuse me. I think I can probably manoeuvre it without. And I'm probably looking more at the Manchester United wildcard, actually to wildcard in Ronaldo, Fernandes, plus one more around about game week 14 or 15. That's my current thinking. But if I need to use that wildcard, I'll use it. I mean, if I got 4 or 5 players suddenly are out for game week 4 for me, I'll use it this week. To be honest, I'm not that set on holding on to it. Andrew Grandin says, has there been any clarity on the possibility of FIFA suspending the players not released for qualifiers for game week 4? No. Not that I've seen, unfortunately. And again, that's why we need to wait in terms of transfers, really. Ray Qureshi says, good afternoon, James. Much needed break from FPL. Have a good weekend, pal. And to you, mate. Mac1 says, Ronaldo or Lukaku. I'm going to say Lukaku. Lee Jackson says, BCFC correspondent, I'm creasing. There are some funny characters on your streams, mate. Listen, careful, Lee. I know they're your rivals, but be respectful. You're a Planet FPL rep. Marcus Nelson said, do you think Marcel is a good option in FPL? No. Because of what I explained near the start of the stream, that there is an undercurrent of feeling that Aït-Nouri might come in for him with the fixtures being easier. So, no, not for me. It's worth saying just on Wolves, Bradley Parker will be on next Thursday's Clash. The correspondence, I'll be recording with him and Stephen Toomey to preview Watford and Wolves ahead of the. I mean, for me, those two clubs have got the best next 3 fixtures, so it's perfect timing for those two to come on COTC. So Bradley will give the full detail on Wolves next week. Jason Armstrong says, you're a very sexy man, James. If I was you, mate, I'd go down to Specsavers. Anik Majunda says, Sanchez or Raya or Gator? Sanchez all day for me. Raya's gone up on price, you've missed it. And although they have Brighton and Wolves next, they've got a shitty 4 after that, Brentford. There is, as I always say, there is always one promoted goalkeeper who tends to do well, and it looks like it possibly is going to be David Raya. No, I'd go Sanchez for the consistency, and to know actually, and even in some of the bigger games, Brighton can keep out the top sides. So they'll be better now, I think. They've got a few players coming back. Hopefully they'll get Dunk back to central or centre of the 3. He's not comfortable as a left-sided. That'll make a monster difference to them. If they go Veltman and Webster, yes, sorry, that's probably bad news for Shane Duffy owners. As we'd warned, they'll be in a better place for it. So I wouldn't put it this way. There's a possibility I need to replace Martinez, and I think at the moment it's only between Jose Sa and Sanchez for me. Are the only 2 options under consideration. Marcus Nelson says, do you think Traore is worth bringing on a wild card given the tough fixtures? I think you mean the easy fixtures. They look great. Is Adama Traore ever going to convert into FPL returns? Plus, the amount of space he has to attack, quite often for him, it is easier for him to do it against better opposition rather than those who will put up lower blocks against Wolves themselves. Traore, not on my radar. If I had to get an attacking player, it would still be Jimenez. Trincao looks a good player, but I'm also not convinced on him for FPL returns. So if I had to get an attacking one, I think it'd still be Jimenez personally. Alamot Daddy's another Ronaldo question. Never guessed there'd be some Ronaldo questions. And it says, consensus seems to be Shaw will benefit. Do you agree? Yes. Looking at his headed goals, yes. Because I think Shaw is a crosser who is quite happy to put the ball into areas. And that's all it has to be with Ronaldo. He's unusual in the fact you can just put it up in the air for him. It doesn't have to be whipped in. Actually, they're worse for Ronaldo. The more it's in the air, the way he hangs, he's almost unstoppable. So, yeah, I think it could be good for Luke Shaw. Certainly no thought on my mind to sell Luke Shaw till I've seen him play with Ronaldo and what the impact could be. But, yeah, I think Luke Shaw could have a very good couple of weeks, actually. Rush Johnson says, do you ever think there will be a boy born that can swim faster than a shark? Do I ever think there will be a boy born that can swim faster than a shark? In a word, no. John MacArthur, hey James, for Sky, do you think Cancelo is a shout with Mendy having his issues? Many thanks. Mendy is no influence to Cancelo. Absolutely zero. The influence to Cancelo is Zinchenko and Kyle Walker. And that's it. So we know he can do very well in that format. But Stones and Laporte, once you've worked out which one's going to play, which I realise is difficult at the moment, are cheaper. The advice on Man City, in my opinion, would be pay the extra for Ruben Diaz at the moment. Lombinetto, hi, Arsh James. Yeah, how are you doing? Should I start with Ronaldo or Aubameyang for game week 4? Next question. Samuel Curfy says, hi James, love your content, mate. I'm on Wildcard and thinking of going 3 premiums Ronaldo, Lukaku, Salah. Is it too much or worth a punt for a few weeks? As said, Samuel, refer back to the question I answered a little earlier in the stream for Sim. Andre Traore, as opposed to Adama, says, your thoughts on bringing in Boom Boom Aubameyang? You mean all Blanca Yang? No. It's just not. Yeah, look, it's great fixture in game week 4 against Norwich, and if you're feeling really fruity, great. But you're going to want to get rid of that straight away. Javi Alcantara, James, can you come to my sister's wedding tomorrow evening? I invite you. Postcode is SN2 4EJ. Well, I don't know where that is, and certainly, unfortunately, I'm busy because I've got my own gig happening with the little man. And it's a weird request. I wouldn't come anyway. No offence. Alistair Hargreaves. Are you wildcard in game week 4 or game week 7? I've answered that. Possibly later. Max Pointer. Sanchez, Semedo and Duffy. Or Sarr, Marcal and Duffy. Double Brighton or Wolves defence. It's not Shane Duffy. Honestly. I'd refer back to the podcast I did after they beat Watford. Before they lost to Everton, we suggested it would just need a game to swing it. Honestly, I wouldn't go for Duffy. Go with Livramento or Brandon Williams. Don't go with Duffy. Ryan Reed said, just a quick thanks to the work you do. It really fills my minute-to-minute football session, the amount of work you in. Thanks on behalf of everyone who gets to listen. You're very welcome, Ryan. Thank you. John Harris says, hi, James. Opinion on Son and Ings out for Jota and Lukaku from -4. Captain Lukaku. Yeah, reasonable that, mate. The reason it's reasonable is I don't think Palace away is a great fixture for Son. And then obviously Son walks into Chelsea afterwards and stuff. And it gets you into the position where you've got a premium forward, which you probably haven't already. So yeah, I like that move, John. To be honest with you, if I didn't have Tsimikas, I'd probably be doing exactly that. But I can't. With the keeper problem I've got as well, I'm -8 and beyond to make that happen. I simply cannot do it. But yeah, I would do that, mate. Ross Johnson says, let's chat about Arsenal, James. Oh, let's do that. White looks like he's dropping in price. Surely their season starts now and White is a good option. I may well get Ben White. And to answer to the previous question, no, if I got Martinez down to Sanchez and got White in for Tsimikas, I still couldn't do the Jota and Lukaku job for a -8. I think I'm just short on money, and I'm not prepared to rush it with all the outside stuff going on. Yeah, Ben White's under consideration for me. I definitely want clarity that he's available, and there's obviously no rush to buy him because now he's 4.4, and I think there's a few of us, I've said it for a few weeks, that yeah, if he's 4.3 coming into game week 4, I wouldn't rule out buying him actually, because you're walking straight into Norwich at home. What I need to assess, I think, is how much I'd use him afterwards. Would I really, really use him? So I think for me, I'm comparing it probably versus Ayling if I end up going that way. So I look at game week 5 and I go, yeah, I'd probably go Ayling at Newcastle rather than White at Burnley. I mean, they'll attack him aerially, wouldn't they? It'd be Ayling for me in 6 and 7, I think. Arsenal got Palace in 8, Leeds to Southampton away. I'd probably go Ben White in 8. 9, Ayling's got Wolves, White's got Villa at home. That's a toss of coin. I think there's every chance I'd possibly go Ayling. And then 10's Ayling, 11 is White, 12 you wouldn't want either of them. But you'd probably go Ayling away to Tottenham, as Arsenal got Liverpool away. So that's what I need to see. If I go that way, and I'm thinking perhaps a little bit longer term, how much would I actually use him? And if I come to the conclusion it's possibly only 2 out of 10 or 11 game weeks, then realistically I should just go cheaper and just go Williams or Livramento, unless I can make that work where it allows me as part of the hit to do it and get something in and leaves me in a strong position this week. But no, I think it's probably not going to be for me, but I think he's reasonable. I think Tomiyasu's worth keeping an eye on as well, the new Japanese right back who's been brought in at 4.5. Not from an offensive point of view, probably is likely to be a very defensive right back for Arsenal. But I'm pretty sure from the reports I've read about him, he'll go in there and be first choice right back. Not that Ben White's not going to be, but there is a little bit of danger that actually Ben White could drop beyond 4.3 because his ownership, there was quite a bit of it at the start. He could drop to 4.2. You don't want that sort of thing happening. And to be honest, it would just take them to concede against Norwich or him to not start the game against Norwich. And it could go that far. And then with what they've got afterwards, you're not probably interested. So it's probably a no. But I think you can consider. If you really want the Aubameyang fruity 1 week punt, I'll tell you what I'd love as a 1 week punt if he played. Is Pepe. Because of Norwich's problems on the left-hand side. But that's just too risky. Too risky in my opinion. Can I talk about him being bottom of the league? Is that alright, Ross? Can we just do that for a little bit? No, I'll let it go. FPL Gloucester, only another week or so to suffer, Gooners. Then it might get better. Could get worse, though. FPL Gloucester, hear any DCL injury news? Really want him. I wouldn't expect anything until next Thursday, Friday, mate, whenever Benitez press conferences, and you may not even get the clarity there. It's international break. He's not away on internationals or anything. You're unlikely to get anything unless it's very bad news, i.e. he's out 2-3 weeks or something like that. Otherwise, you're just going to have to wait, I'm afraid. Andy P said, hi James, love your content. Am I okay to talk Sky? Of course you are, yeah. Is it okay to line up captains for the full TV fixtures to end of October or transfer them in, i.e. Arsenal coverage for those Monday to Friday? So this is something, Andy, we're going to have a real proper look at on Wednesday, and we're going to look at entry and exit points for a number of players and clubs. Really, we did a watch list of players on Wednesday's podcast. This coming Wednesday, we're going to really deal into the fixture and the strategy, and we're going to look at the pros and cons of that specifically, whether you start with Arsenal or whether you wait for those 2 games against Crystal Palace and Aston Villa in match weeks 8 and 9 and get them for that. I realise for the FPL listeners, that's not going to make any sense. Please just ignore what I'm saying unless you're listening to Sky. But we'll cover it properly, Andy, on Wednesday. I haven't even done a draft yet. That's the honest answer. And I'm not going to till this weekend because I haven't had the time to plan for that podcast yet. And that podcast will be planned properly. So once I've done the draft, I'll give you the proper answer. My instinct is, Andy, that the ideal solution would be to start with one. And that's because Norwich, Burnley, Tottenham, Brighton shouldn't be necessarily overlooked because that's a good 4 fixtures as a group. And then you've got the 2 potential captaincy days against Palace and Villa. However, the one benefit, of course, of waiting the other way is you get your pick. You get the extra 4 days of information and you can pick someone and you can hop off. So you can go Lukaku to Aubameyang and then back again, for example. So we're going to look at both ideas of that. Once I've done my draft, I'll be able to tell you what I think I'm doing. RJ Moon says Lukaku versus Ronaldo for game week 4 predicted points. I will go, Lukaku 6, Ronaldo 7. Sneaky bonus point in there. No, I'll go Lukaku. Lukaku will probably have because of his conversions probably good. It'd probably be a point in there. So I'll go Lukaku 7. I'll go Ronaldo 12. Yeah, I'll go 12. Goal and assist. Richard Saunders Irving says, I'm keeping Kane till game week 5 or for Ronaldo, excuse me. Am I mad? Not at all, mate. I think Harry Kane can't go off at Crystal Palace. Of course he can, mate. Is it mad? No. If you believe it, mate, crack on. Personally, I think if I had the free transfer, I'd make the free transfer. If it's hits and stuff, no, you're right with Harry. Easton says, what do you think of having a slightly weaker midfield now? Salah, Rafinha, Saar, Benrahma, but having a strong attack before the game week 7-8 wildcard. I think if you're looking to wildcard in game week 7, there's a strong case not to bother with Ronaldo or Lukaku or Kane. And just stick with what you've got, be it Salah, Fernandes, Salah, Son, whatever. Just stick with it in and around that. You probably want to captain Salah in 5 and 6, don't you? That's where my headspace is at anyway. So I think if you're intending to wildcard in 7, you probably... I mean, if you want to force in Ronaldo or something, or Lukaku, fine. But in terms of trying to really downgrade there for sake of 3 game weeks, no. It's the FOMO. But they're all the big 5 premium players. And to a certain extent, at the moment, you could put Son in as a 6th. They can go off in any game at any time. That's the point. That's why they're premiums and stuff, right? You cannot have all 5 of them. So there's no point sitting there every week worrying about one of them's going to hurt you, because the chances are they will. It's life. And I think right now the FOMO is Ronaldo, Lukaku, they're the new toys. They're going to be the most captained. It's a problem. But Bruno Fernandes could outscore both of them in game week 5. Borderline FPL podcast says, what are your thoughts on the Bruno out in a -4 move for Ronaldo? May have already been covered, just joined. Also, do we have any Firmino injury news? No Firmino injury news. That's going to be similar to anyone. The only way you're going to get news most likely is if it's the player tweets something on Instagram like, oh, I'm training on Monday, or if it's really bad news. That's the only way you're probably going to hear before the press conferences. On the -4 move, yes, I have covered. No, I wouldn't do it. 9Tank7 says, hi James, struggling in my monthly league. Should I triple captain Mend? No, mate. First off, you're a bit dodgy putting a certain player's name in there. The other one I can live with a little bit. You're currently on Wildcard and wondering to go TA and Smith Rowe or Jota and Shaw. To be honest with you, I prefer the Jota and Shaw combination, but I wouldn't want to be going without Trent at the moment. That's still the way I feel about it. But as a combination at the moment, I think Jota and Shaw. Lin Tian Bao, sorry for asking again, but I thought I didn't phrase my previous question correctly. I want to get Ronaldo for a hit, take Bruno out, but not sure whether to get Torres or Jota. Jota requires a -8 due to Shimikas. It's too much. It's too much, in my opinion. It's too much. It's a no for me. It's just a no. Just a no. Stay as you are. Static says, would you take a -4 to go from Wilson to Calvert-Lewin? Might wildcard game week 7, so it's only for the next 3 games. No, Wilson at home to Leeds and Wilson away to Watford's great. And the beauty of Callum Wilson is, listen, let's say United beat Newcastle 4-1. What do you think scoring for Newcastle? I'd back Callum Wilson. Plus, you're looking to transfer out one player who's doubtful, to transfer in another player who's doubtful. Nah, can't be doing it, mate. Samuel Curfey says, thinking of going for a defensive Semedo. Oh, Duffy, he's there again. White Alien Manquillo. Fucking hell. As I'm going for 3 premiums plus Antonio Jota Torres. Is my defence too light, do you think? Yes, your defence is too light, mate. Honestly, your defence is way too light. Please don't do that. I love the fact that you've got one player who's like over 4.5 and it's a Wolves player. And I know they have great fixtures, but you didn't even stretch up to like, oh, Christensen or nothing. Don't do that, Samuel. Honestly, it's just going to come back and hurt, mate. Richard Saunders Irving says, keeping Kane for game week 4 to swap to Ronaldo game week 5. Okay. Thomas says, hi James, would you take a -8 to get Jota in? Have to remove Shimikas. Would you just get Torres in? If that's the position you're in, I'd just get Torres in. Yeah, honestly. We haven't got the Firmino information, so I realised this. Oh my God, Firmino could be out for. Listen, Firmino could be back for game week 5 right now. For all we know, he might be available for game week 4. We just don't know. So no, I can't advise to do it. Please don't make early transfers. FPL Pepsi said, did you watch FPL Black Box and Mark's analysis on how Ronaldo might struggle for service? If you did, what is your thoughts? Thank you for the question, FPL Pepsi. I covered that in the opening 10 minutes or so. Yes, I did. I covered specifically the Black Box stream. Seb Fox says, do you think that Ronaldo will play at least 60 minutes versus Newcastle? He seems to be fit enough given that he scored 2 the other day versus Ireland. I would expect Ronaldo to play at least 80 minutes. I wouldn't fall off my chair stunned if he was a substitute, but I would be very, very surprised now. So, yeah, I think Ronaldo plays. Ronaldo's not a player you take off after 60 minutes. It's at least 80. And if it's 80, it'll be, they want to save him for the Champions League midweek. The game's won. They want him to have a standing ovation. That'll be it. John Bailey says, hi James, is Emerson Royal an option? Well, the honest answer is, John, you've seen as much of him as I have. The good news with Emerson Royal is he didn't have to quarantine, so he's already training with Tottenham. He's not on international duty or anything. And with the issues we've got with Davinson Sanchez and Christian Romero both looking like they're going to miss game week 4 because of this bollocks with the South American qualifiers, I suspect as it stands that unless Joe Rodon is suddenly available, Tanganga will probably play centre-back for that particular game. And Emerson will play right back. It probably isn't going to be a choice, to be honest. And then once he's in, he'll stay in, I think. But have I ever properly seen him play football? No. So can I advise him as an option? No. He looks like a cross between Maicon, Cafu, Carlos Alberto on YouTube. I suspect in real life he's probably nearer Sergio Aurier and Matt Doherty, so time will tell. Javier Alcantara said he can't be worse than them two though. Mark Cucurella played as left winger last season. Now he is in Brighton. Your thoughts? Good question, and I tell you why it's a good question. Because he was in the intro for our Patreon podcast this morning, and I spoke about him at length on our Patreon podcast this morning, and suggested that he's a player that everybody should be watching over the next few weeks because he could well be a proper OOP in this game. Yep, one definitely. It's not a buy straight away because he may need time to be integrated into the team, and Solly March's fitness may be a little bit dependent on what happens. But yeah, Mark Cucurella at Brighton is a player you all need to keep a watchful eye on. He's 5.0 as a defender. FPL Pepsi says, what is your thoughts on Wolves attackers? I'm leaning towards Jimenez or bust, but forward slots are so stacked. I think if I was wildcarding, I would probably go Jimenez. I think it's a no for me because I'm not convinced, and I'd want to be able to kind of do my team so I was happy enough to know that almost in an odd way he becomes one of the gambles and I can leave it if I want to. So I think on wildcard, if I had Wolves attacker, it'd still be Jimenez. I think if I was wildcard, in all honesty, I'd be Jimenez, Antonio, Lukaku. I think. And there would be a case to be made if CalvertLewin is definitely fit, then CalvertLewin instead. And you could have an assessment of Jimenez another 3 games, and you could drop CalvertLewin to Jimenez in game week 7, perhaps. But to do that, you need to start with Lukaku as one of the 3 up front. That's where I'd be at, I think. Stian Bostel says, what did you advertise this, mate? Is Martinez a problem, or are you taking the price drop? I have Sanchez as well because of my bench boost in game week 1. Stian, sell Martinez for a 4 million goalkeeper, mate. Just get it done with. Go get Jed Steer. If I was wildcard this week, Jed Steer would be the 4 million goalkeeper. There's every chance he's going to play Villa's next 2 games. And just by default, he'll get some interest as the 4 million goalkeeper. Just get Jed Steer, mate. Leave Jed Steer on the bench. Get him in. Use the 1.5 million somewhere else in your team. Because it looks like there's every chance Martinez is going to miss game week 5 as well. Because Argentina are being stubborn, saying, no, they're keeping the players now, potentially. He's got to go. There's too much bullshit about it. Plus, not overly impressed with what I saw with Villa in the first 3 games either. Lamichi said, hi James, move Son or Bruno out for a premium striker next game week. I don't know about doing that. I might move Son out next week. It's not impossible that I move Son out this week. I need to get the other side and know where I'm at with fitness of players, right? But at the moment, the intention is to keep him. And one thing I am conscious of with Sonny is I like his 7 and 8, Villa at home, Newcastle away are decent. And then there's a couple more difficult ones. And then he's got another really good run from 12. So I know how consistent it'll be. It's similar to what I said about Salah earlier. Ronaldo joining Man United doesn't change what Heung-min Son may or may not do at Tottenham, right? What may or may not change it is where he plays. I definitely don't like him playing as the right for front 3. It just doesn't feel the same. I'd want him in the left position or through the middle personally. So be keeping an eye on that. There's nothing to say he'll stay in that position on the right, the front 3. He could easily be back to the left against Crystal Palace. And obviously if something happens to Kane, he'll be back through the middle. So we need information. But yeah, I think if I had Bruno, I'd be looking to move him on next week. And probably, yeah, just go for it with Lukaku in game week 5, I think, possibly. Or set it up, leave the money. I mean, you wouldn't have to force to remove Bruno for West Ham away, Villa at home. They're still decent as well. One step at a time, I think, at the moment for a lot of us. Medallin says, is it possible for Bruno to drop lower than 11.8 until game week 7? Yes, of course it is. He could drop 0.2 every week between now and then. That obviously won't happen. But yeah, he could. Also considering Bruno will play in Azerbaijan for Portugal on 4th, and probably he won't even start against Newcastle. When's the 4th? Right, but he's not playing on the 4th in Azerbaijan because that game's next week. That game must be Wednesday, Saturday. Must be Tuesday, I think. So I think you'd be okay. I don't believe Azerbaijan's on a red list as far as I'm concerned. Ez Thrifty says, hey James, thoughts on Smith Rowe, hold or sell? You hold this week, mate. You got Norwich at home. And then afterwards, get rid, I think. Simon Matthews, thoughts on Delhi? From an FPL perspective, he's going to do better or worse depending on opponent. He is one of those who he's not likely to return in the games against the big opponents this year because he plays as the left of a midfield three without the ball. He tries to play as a number 10 when we have the ball. So fixtures like Palace at home should be a benefit, but it's really dependent in terms of how much Tottenham have of the ball. Against Chelsea, against Arsenal, you can expect to see him in deeper positions. Villa, Newcastle might be two good fixtures for him. From an FPL perspective, wouldn't go anywhere near him. Wouldn't even cross my mind, personally. Majek Spitfire, Daniel James moved to Leeds. Any thoughts? We covered this a lot on yesterday's Clash of Correspondence. We think he probably won't go straight into the team, but he's a player Marcelo Bielsa's admired for quite a long time, so it doesn't surprise me that they've gone and bought him. And I'll finish with Harbour Boy. It says, good morning from New Zealand, James. No question from me, just saying hi. Much appreciated. Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate the questions. Sorry to those I didn't get to. If anybody is listening and has submitted a question, screenshot it, pop it in a DM. I'll definitely get it answered for you if you do that. By all means, slide into my DMs, Planet FPL Pod on Twitter. If you'd like to support our content on Patreon, now's a good time to do so. It's towards the start of the month. 22 additional podcasts on Patreon from intermediate tier and above. I can confirm those podcasts next week will be a Q&A on Monday. We're bringing our quiz forward to Tuesday. There's an important reason why for that. Our regular Tottenham podcast on Wednesday. Next Thursday, we will have an additional Sky Fantasy Football podcast on top of our general public one on Wednesday. And next Friday, we will have the Differential Show, our comprehensive Game Week 4 preview. Regular podcast next week. Monday, we will do a full podcast, and we're probably going to open it up for a bit of a Q&A to everybody. Tuesday, I'm going to keep secret for the moment. It's non-FPL related, I can tell you that. Keep an eye on the social media channels in the next 48 hours or so is what we'll say about that. Wednesday will be Sky Fantasy. Thursday's Clash to Correspondence, as already said. Sixth goal, Bradley Parker, Watford versus Wolves. Next Friday, I'll be streaming again. Should be same time. And then there's the deadline stream for you next Saturday morning as well. 10 a.m. UK time. Other than that, thanks very much, everyone. Have a great weekend. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.